Valentine's Day, a day of romance and love. What better way to celebrate love than with a little horror? Therefore, I have compiled a list of horror movies that are either set around the holiday itself or are filled with those feelings of love and affection, aka romance horror. So, join us now as we list 13 horror movies to watch for Valentine's Day. But before we begin, be sure to slash that like button and be certain that you're subscribed, as we are always posting horror-related content and will be bringing you more lists just like this one. So put down those flowers, grab yourself some chocolates, and enjoy. My Bloody Valentine from 1981. The little town of Valentine Bluffs hasn't celebrated Valentine's Day in over a decade. That is because the last time the town celebrated Valentine's Day, the psychopath Harry Warden went on a killing spree. Now with Harry Warden long dead, the town tries to move on and celebrate the holiday once again. Not soon after the town begins decorating for the big day, the killings start yet again. But who is the killer? Is Harry Warden back from the dead? Being that the movie revolves around Valentine's Day, there is a lot of Valentine's Day decorations and imagery. However, there is also a nice little love triangle going on between some of the main characters. Oh, and the killer's minor costume looks cool as well. The mask and breathing apparatus is quite scary. Like other slasher movies from the 80s, this film was heavily cut to meet an R rating from the MPAA. If you can seek out the 93-minute unrated version, I would highly recommend it. There are several scenes in the 90-minute version that you can't even tell what happened, since the movie is cut so much. My Bloody Valentine is a no-brainer watch for Valentine's Day. It has that 80s horror slasher charm and a nice whodunit storyline. Warm Bodies from 2013. So a zombie falls in love with a still living girl. That is the story of Warm Bodies in a nutshell. Nicholas Hoult, who you should know from Mad Max Fury Road and the more recent Renfield, plays R, a zombie who's been shambling through his undead life looking for some kind of purpose. Teresa Palmer, who would go on to star in 2016 Lights Out, plays Julie, the girl that R falls in love with. Things don't play out like your typical boy falls in love with girl romance, as he is a zombie and Julie doesn't want to be killed. But this unconventional approach makes for an entertaining movie. Warm Bodies might throw out everything you know about zombie movies, but the film puts its own spin on things, like the fact that some of the zombies are learning to form words, the threat of more advanced and aggressive zombies known as bonies, and even going as far as creating a so-called cure to the zombie outbreak. This horror comedy is a little light on the horror, making it a great film to show to that significant other that isn't into the genre. But overall, the romance between Julie and R is cute and funny, making it perfect for a Valentine's Day viewing. Bride of Chucky from 1998. Bride of Chucky is the fourth film in the long-running Child's Play or Chucky series. Bride of Chucky was directed by Ronnie Yu, who would go on to direct the much-anticipated Freddy vs. Jason in 2003. The film stars Brad Dourif as the voice of Chucky. You might remember Brad Dourif as Sheriff Brackett in the Rob Zombie's Halloween films. Jennifer Tilly stars as Tiffany Valentine, who would go on to play Tiffany in every subsequent Chucky sequel following this film. The film also stars Katherine Heigl, who you might know from Grey's Anatomy and Knocked Up, and John Ritter, who you might know from Three's Company and Problem Child. The film follows two love stories. The first is between Katherine Heigl's character Jade and her boyfriend Jesse. They are constantly fighting to be with one another, but Jade's overbearing uncle and police chief, played by John Ritter, does whatever he can to keep them apart. It eventually leads to the two lovers running away together. The second love story is between Chucky and Tiffany, who have a very unconventional relationship, to say the least. Everywhere they go, a trail of blood seemingly follows. At one point, the two even have a makeshift wedding of sorts. The two love stories intertwine in the film as Jade and Jesse end up with Chucky and Tiffany, but I won't give anything away. As you can guess, though, shit hits the fan, but love prevails overall, doesn't it? Lover's Lane from 2000. While compiling this list, I searched and searched for more horror movies that revolved around the holiday of Valentine's Day. There really aren't that many, which is why this list is open to romance horror movies, which still is fitting. But in my search, I discovered Lover's Lane, which I had never seen before. Lover's Lane is about a murderer who escapes from prison to hunt down the children to his victims of his crimes 13 years ago. The movie co-stars Anna Faris in one of her first ever roles. She is best known for the Scary Movie series, but is also in the amazing May from 2002. Lover's Lane is a low-budget film for sure, and if you are used to watching low-budget horror movies like we are, then you'll know that this really isn't all that bad. The film has a certain charm to it. Also, it can't be that low budget if they blow up a house in the movie. I haven't seen very many low-budget horror movies with house explosions. As every one of these lists showcases something on the extreme side, I feel like they should also contain something on the low-budget side. The movie has its flaws for sure, but overall, it's a fun, entertaining slasher movie featuring a killer with a hook hand, dumb, horny teenagers, and the backdrop of Valentine's Day. What more could you ask for? My Boyfriend's Back from 1993. A love story about a guy named Johnny who is madly in love with a girl from school, so much so that even after he dies, he comes back to be with her and to take her to the prom. Along the way, however, seemingly everyone in town is trying to stop the two lovebirds from being together, all while Johnny battles with his body falling apart and a pesky appetite for human flesh. My Boyfriend's Back features some Friday the 13th alumni. The film is produced by Sean S. Cunningham, who is the director of the original Friday the 13th and longtime producer of several of its sequels. The film is written by Dean Lorey, who was the writer of Jason Goes to Hell and also played the assistant coroner. Lastly, the music was made by Harry Manfredini, and oddly enough, some of the film's score sounds very similar to the music in Jason Goes to Hell. My Boyfriend's Back is a fun horror comedy with a messed up romantic tale. The light horror elements are perfect for any significant other that might not be into horror like we are, thus making it a perfect watch for this or any Valentine's Day. Burying the Ex from 2014. In Burying the Ex, we also have someone returning from the grave, only this time it's a controlling ex-girlfriend. From Joe Dante, director of Gremlins and The Burbs, Burying the Ex follows Max, who finally builds up the courage to break up with his girlfriend Evelyn. However, before he could go through with it, she dies in a freak accident. After she is gone, things begin to blossom between him and Olivia. However, things get a little complicated when Evelyn returns from the dead. The film stars Ashley Greene as the zombie ex-girlfriend. You might know her as Alice in the Twilight series. Alexandra Daddario plays Max's new love, Olivia. You might know her as Leatherface's cousin in the 2013 film Texas Chainsaw. The late Anton Yelchin plays Max, who you might remember from the awesome film Green Room. The character of Max is an avid lover of horror movies, especially older black and whites. He even works at a Halloween-type store, which is awesome. Burying the X is a fun little horror comedy with a few gross-out moments thrown in. The love story between Max and Olivia is just the right amount of romance the film needs to make it a great watch for Valentine's Day. Honeymoon from 2014. The directorial debut of Lee Yaniak, who would go on to direct the Fear Street trilogy for Netflix, Honeymoon follows the young couple of Bea and Paul, who are madly in love with one another and seemingly can't take their hands off each other. However, their idyllic lakeside cottage getaway soon takes a turn for the worse as Paul finds Bea disoriented and wandering the woods in the middle of the night. Harry Treadaway plays Paul, who appeared in the Penny Dreadful TV series. Rose Leslie plays Bea, who you might remember from Game of Thrones and her memorable line, "You know nothing, Jon Snow." Honeymoon is a little bit of a slow burn with an uneasy atmosphere, delivering enough creepiness to keep you wondering what is going on. The final act of the movie almost turns into a body horror of sorts, but I won't give away any details. The honeymoon is a celebration of love and the beginning of marriage, perfect for Valentine's Day. What could possibly go wrong? Valentine from 2001. Here is another horror movie that revolves around the holiday of Valentine's Day. Valentine is a slasher movie with a killer that wears a Cupid mask, and it's filled with all the early 2000s cheese you could ask for. Valentine stars Denise Richards of Starship Troopers and Wild Things fame, Marley Shelton, who you might remember from Planet Terror and Scream 4 and 5. Also, there is an appearance from Katherine Heigl, who I mentioned before in Bride of Chucky. Valentine feels very similar to the teen slashers of its time, movies like I Know What You Did Last Summer. So it's no surprise that director Jamie Blanks also directed 1998's Urban Legend. The kills in the movie don't stand out among the slasher greats, but there is at least a variety of weaponry that are used throughout the film. The Cupid mask that the killer wears is a little odd, but with the killer constantly getting nosebleeds, it's kind of creepy. Valentine will never live up to My Bloody Valentine, but with a killer that leaves cards with neat little rhymes in them, all of the heart imagery, and a party scene that plays early 2000s nu metal makes Valentine an enjoyable little slasher to watch for Valentine's Day. Audition from 1999. I try to have at least one movie on the list that is on the extreme side. Audition is a slow burn, but the later half of the movie goes down a real dark and twisted road that isn't for the faint of heart. Directed by Takashi Miike, director of Ichi the Killer, 13 Assassins, and the original One Missed Call, Audition is about a widower that takes an offer from a friend to hold a special audition so he can screen girls in hopes to finding a new wife. The woman he ultimately desires the most turns out to be more trouble than he hoped for. Audition stars Ryo Ishibashi, who you might remember from the US version of The Grudge, and Ai Shina, who would go on to star in the rather bizarre Tokyo Gore Police. Yes, this movie is Japanese and will have subtitles. Please do not watch it dubbed. You are ruining the experience and the original actors' performances. If you can get past reading subtitles, there is a whole new world of horror just waiting for you. Audition is about being lonely and looking for that special lover to fill the void, but sometimes love can hurt. If you haven't seen this movie and are willing to take the journey for Valentine's Day, consider this your warning. May from 2002. Directed by Lucky McKee, director of The Woods, The Woman and Old Man, May follows a young veterinary assistant named May. May, who is obsessed with perfection, lives by herself with her best friend Susie, who is a doll in a glass case. She develops a crush on a man after spotting him on a walk and thinking he has the perfect hands. They eventually go on a few dates, but when things begin to fall apart with her crush, she ends up taking a dark turn. May is played by Angela Bettis, who you might know from the Toolbox Murders, The Woman, and the 2002 Carrie made-for-TV movie. May also stars Jeremy Sisto, who you might remember from Clueless, Wrong Turn, and Hangman. And Anna Faris, who I mentioned before in Lover's Lane. I remember discovering May on cable a long time ago at 1 in the morning. I had no idea what it was or what it was about, but I couldn't stop watching it. Over the years, it has become one of my favorite films. Angela Bettis turns in an excellent performance as the socially awkward May. There are several parts throughout the film where you will say to yourself, she is so weird, but we like weird, right? The cute little romance and interactions between May and Adam make this a great addition to this list. On top of that, the final act of May centers around Halloween and even features characters wearing costumes. Do you want a little Halloween in your Valentine's Day romance horror? Then look no further than May. Lisa Frankenstein from 2024. The most recent released film on this list, Lisa Frankenstein follows a young girl whose crush is, well, dead. After a wild night and a green lightning bolt, he is brought back from the grave. There might be some dead bodies here and there now that she has her newfound friend, but it's all for love, and it is all that matters. Lisa is played by Catherine Newton, who you might know from Paranormal Activity 4, Freaky, and the more recent Abigail. Written by Diablo Cody, who also wrote the highly recommended Jennifer's Body from 2009, Lisa Frankenstein is a cute little horror comedy. The movie might be PG-13, but it features more blood than one would expect. The other neat little aspect to this film is the fact that it's set in 1989. All of the outfits and electronics are straight from the 80s, as well as the soundtrack. To me, the 80s setting and music choices in movies will never get old. Lisa Frankenstein is another film on this list that is perfect for a significant other that isn't into horror. Turn this on for Valentine's Day, and I am sure they will have a great time. Kiss of the Damned from 2012. Paolo, a screenwriter, and Juna, a vampire, fall in love with each other. After Juna converts Paolo over to the side of the undead, they live happily ever after. Well, until Juna's troublemaker sister Mimi shows up and threatens their romance. Kiss of the Damned stars Milo Ventimiglia, who you might know from the two awesome films The Divide and Pathology. Director Zan Cassavetes was apparently inspired by gothic horror movies of the 70s, and I can totally see that. It would have been neat if the movie had that 70s film color grain to it. Kiss of the Damned is much different than the others on this list. The movie has some strong sexual content, but does that surprise you when it comes to vampires? Don't worry though, there's just as much blood to go around. There is some beautiful artsy imagery throughout the film, an excellent soundtrack to match it, and if you're looking for something a little sexier this Valentine's Day, Kiss of the Damned has all the steamy vampire romance one could ask for. My Bloody Valentine from 2009. From the duo behind the Halloween film Trick, director Patrick Lussier and writer Todd Farmer bring us the 2009 remake of My Bloody Valentine. On the 10th anniversary of Harry Warden's Valentine's Night Massacre, Tom, played by Jensen Ackles, who you might know as Dean Winchester in the Supernatural television series, returns home to take care of some business. Only instead of having a pleasant homecoming, a new killing spree begins around town. Is Harry Warden back for revenge, or is someone impersonating him? The remake still has the love triangle, as Sarah obviously still has feelings for Tom after not seeing him for so long, but now she's married to Axel, the town sheriff, who has some secrets of his own. Jamie King stars as Sarah, who you might know from Silent Night and Mother's Day. Kerr Smith plays Axel, who you remember from Final Destination. Also, the man himself, Tom Atkins, stars as one of the police officers. The 2009 My Bloody Valentine is presented in 3D, as it was part of the 3D craze Hollywood was desperately trying to push around the time of its release. I personally saw this in the theaters in 3D, and even though I would say it was a fun watch in 3D, you aren't really missing anything if you just watch the normal 2D version. Even though the movie lacks the charm of the original, it's still a fun ride. The Miner appears on screen more and is also much more ruthless. The movie still has the whodunit storyline to keep you guessing, and sways from the original's twists to keep things fresh. Well, that's our list. If you have any Valentine's Day related horror movie recommendations, or just any horror movie you think brings the love and romance vibes, let us know in the comments. Perhaps it will end up on the next list. Once again, don't forget to subscribe for more horror related content like this. Until next time.